Hey everybody, welcome to Freedom School Online, where we are diving into a conversation with the unflappable Dr. Shamell Bell, who is an Emmy-nominated producer, professor, activist, and scholar for for Freedom School Online's third installment of our summer school session. Dr. Bell just finished providing a workshop to us all using somatic visualization to assist us with how to dream about freedom. And if you don't know who Dr. Bell is, Dr. Bell, who has deep roots in Los Angeles, is known for her work at the intersections of activism, academia, and the arts. She advocates for social justice and community healing. And as a founding Black Lives Matter movement member, she has fostered global dialogue for equity and understanding. And so, with that, let us now hear from Dr. Shamell Bell. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you for having
Of
me.
course, of course. So
For
happy to
always
have you for
supporting
Freedom
me.
School. Of course, of course, of course. We are gonna get straight into it, Dr. Bell. We got about 6 questions, and I'd love to have on the record officially, like who Dr. Bell is and why Dr. Bell does what she does. So the first question I have for you really is, when did you first fall in love with the medium you work with, and what are those mediums, if at all?
Wow. Yeah, so I've been on the stage since I can walk, like pretty much like 18 months. I was a childhood like toddlers and tiaras or that kind of um, childhood beauty queen. And so that is what prepared me to be in front of an audience. Then I became, my talent was dancing. And so I'm a street dancer. So South Central Los Angeles, Inglewood, stand up. Yeah, so I lived all around LA and Inglewood and Leimert and all of those different areas. And so street dance in particular, it was, Tommy the Clown. It was also the transition to crumping. And so I had my own community organization through the entertainment. Thanks to my mom who got me into entertainment. She had her own like kind of like modeling group, urban modeling group. And so because I had to be a part of it, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have my own group. And so you actually just saw in a workshop, Tiffany Pitts, I saw her, it was like a $3.99 clothing store. And I was like, oh, she pretty? You wanna be a part of my modeling and dance group? So I would like, if I knew you back then, I'd be like, oh, you wanna be a part of my group? And it was my way of getting people, I'm from South Central and people were going to jail or they were dying. And, my neighbor across the street, she didn't make it. She was killed. And so, that was one of my close friends, I went to school every day with. And so for me, dance was the medium, right? I theorized through my body, through dance. I was in a documentary called Rise, and that's where things shifted. And so, in how did that switch to academia? So I didn't even know USC was a good school and it was down the street from my house. I didn't know. I thought you had to be bused far away because that's what I did for like middle school and high. I was like, no, it can't be. They were like, are you serious? So ain't no way. But I met Robin D.G. Kelly there, who we just did the freedom dreaming exercising with. And it was in his classroom that someone did a presentation on crump. And I was damn near under the, excuse my language, under the seat because I'm like, oh, I look the same. Are they gonna notice? And I didn't know that you could even study dance like that. I didn't know much about college. I thought you had to be a lawyer or a doctor or, I didn't know anything about PhD. I'm a first generation high school graduate. My brothers don't have GEDs or high school diplomas. And I say that because I put them on my back. So I didn't know. So mind you, Robin D.G. Kelly comes up to me and is like, "Oh, you're going to be a PhD," and I'm like, as a law school is 3 years. How y'all be taking for you? How long is a PhD? You can get a free master. Sign me up, free, anything free. I'm thinking I get a discount. Looking at my whole PhD because I got a free master's. Sound crazy, but yeah, that's why my medium. And at the same time, I met Melina Abdullah the same year, And then when Justice for Trayvon Martin, that kind of thing came out of, me making a phone call to Melina, was like, getting your students together and getting out into Lamert. And Lamert is also where the dance was. So listen to the synchronicity. I'm always going to Lamert. I'm going to Lamert to dance. I'm going to Lamert because I later did my honors thesis at USC on jerkin, another dance form that was after Crump. And so I'm in Lamert for that. And then I come back to Lamert and into the streets for Justice for Trayvon Martin. Then we hooked up with Patrice Cullors and her crew. And then we have Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. So at the same time, I'm in my PhD doing a dissertation on Black Lives Matter street dance activism, just an autoethnography and an oral history of folks around me. And then I'm an educator in the Ivy League now. You get what I'm saying? So, at the same time being a single mom, co-parenting with his dad, but mostly with me at that time in my PhD. And so I'm a mother first. So mother, educator, activist, community organizer, artist, dancer, choreographer, all at the same
All the
time.
mediums, all the mediums, all the
At the
mediums.
same time, doing, consulting on film like The Hate You Give, or, now Lessons in Chemistry, where I'm an Emmy-nominated producer. Come on. Like,
Come on, everybody. Did y'all hear that? Just for the record, Dr. Bell is an Emmy-nominated producer, professor, activist, and scholar. All of the things. So give the flowers, y'all. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
no, but so one thing I am grateful to, just the design and destiny of my life is that I can show up in authentic ways. And my job is just to be me in all of the spaces, right? And my body actually doesn't feel congruent if I'm not in my authenticity, if it literally feels sick. And so if I'm going into a space and it does not feel like freedom, that's not the space that I'm gonna be in, or I'm gonna need to transform it. So that's why I was kind of like a hellraiser, everybody, everywhere I went. UCLA, organizing the students, walkouts, all types of stuff, organizing family housing with racist incidents, I'm doing theater of the oppressed for the racism that are happening in UCLA. I just have to, at different institutions, have to make sure that, and I give thanks to Robin Kelly as well as Bell Hooks. And I was just at the Bell Hooks Center for a year. But the engaged pedagogy, like, how do you turn that into a choreography? How do you move it? And as you saw in my workshop, how do you move these things from theory? How do you move it from constantly looking at things that we want to tear down and not what we want to build? And so that's what I do in the classroom as well as in the streets. And that could be community organizing, that could be dancing. I don't know.
Wow. I, I heard everywhere you go that you don't feel freedom, you make freedom happen in that space, which is an amazing to know that Lamert Park is this constant, like, a headquarters or ground zero for you and all of your eras that you've had to be the amazing scholar as you are now, Dr. Bell. And which kind of leads me to the second question today is how does the city of LA, um, how does the city of LA as a unique environment influence your creative process and your relationship to all the medium you just shared? Like,
It's a
it
beautiful
sounds like you kind of already answered it, but yeah, I'd love to hear more.
No, that's a beautiful question. I actually was gonna wear an LA hat, but I got God is my favorite celebrity because they about one and one, but God has literally put me in the space of the ability to hold, I literally hold South Central on my back too. Like what does it mean to be a girl from South Central Los Angeles, born in Inglewood, and then be able to be an international activists, like how, and then in the beginning of it, you never thought, like, I know that it's not me. I know that I was placed in South Central Los Angeles, Inglewood. I was even at Watts for a moment. I was all over, but I think that having the understanding that for my elementary years, I actually was in Georgia, which is why I wanted to return to Georgia. And this was so profound to get me to understand Los Angeles more. So I had a stepfather that we lived kind of near the airport when I was in all my elementary years. And one of the years in my fifth grade, we just didn't go back. That's how I found out my parents, my stepdad and my mom divorced, because he was a Delta airline mechanic, and so we would fly for free every Friday. And so I thought I was rich because he'd been there for like 25 years. So I would be hopping on standby and getting first class, and then I'm in the hood. I'm on 60th Place and Western, Slauson and Western, right behind the Slauson. And that's where my brothers were, in my mother's home out there. And so one day I didn't go back. Now, this is profound because I told you I was in Georgia at the time, and there wasn't a lot of Black people in my neighborhood at the time. And I went to a school where I got a really great education. But then when I got to Los Angeles, I got to Budlong Elementary. They didn't have books. They didn't have a gifted class to put me in. I was already in gifted in Georgia. And so I became like a TA. And then they were like, you can't go to the schools here. You got to find out how to get bussed out. And so this dealt with my fascination with, that's how I understood race, class, gender, that's how I became like interested in what is white supremacy. What is, like, I'm fascinated by, like, why is there a class difference? What's happening in Atlanta that's not happening in South Central? Why we had so many books in Atlanta and they don't even know what to do with me in Georgia, in California. And so LA and understanding, especially understanding gangs, like I love to use the word that I'm gang adjacent. I grew up with gang members. Some of them are my big brothers, and they protected me. And to be honest, I didn't even know they were gang members until I was in my 30s. So I was like, a big homie. Oh, he did call me little homie. He did have a name. Ooh. May or may not have kind of been a gang member. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they protected me. So understanding, and that's what was a part of my dissertation, because Nipsey passed right when I was finishing up my dissertation, and all of my friends were really close friends with Nipsey. But because I was bussed out, they were, still close. And so I had to take care of my friends who were really grieving. And, we were like ships passing, right? And I was actually in Leimert sitting there while Nipsey perished. It was crazy. Like, right, I had to look at TMZ, like, why can't I get through? I was going to a meeting on Slauson, and I'm like, why can't I get through? And on TMZ, it said that Nipsey was shot. Mind you, here I am trying to call gang members that I know. This is what I'm doing. I was like, so if Nipsey passed, make sure there's no war, gang war. Like, who's the big homies I can talk to? What this little PhD student doing? And they're like, saying, well, the younger people, we don't have, some of us are in jail, the older people, because, I turned 40 this year. But mind you, thinking I'm going to go ahead and talk to the gang members I know in Los Angeles about an opportunity to do what Kendrick did. This idea of putting all the different gangs together. And we had that for a moment. I did a visual for Nipsey, thinking I was going to do it with his closer friends, about 30. I brought them like little bags of like self-care things, like Epsom salt and different things like that. We went to Hamilton, did a little, why was 300 people there? I was like, how y'all even found it? Wait, were you there? Mind you, that just came out of my brain. So all of these moments, like, where am I getting these clear senses from to just be aware, to tap in? And that is something that I know that God placed me in South Central, and I have like a different understanding of what gangs are in South Central, because I understand race, class, gender. I understand they're fighting over land that they don't even own because of resources and who brought the drugs and the guns in the neighborhoods and what's happening with police and gang injunction, like all of these things. Like I was able to understand the workings of racial capital, even as we talked about it with Robin D.G. Kelley and Black Marxism earlier in the workshop. So LA has made me into a scholar, an organic intellectual, because I lived the experiences in LA that folks were writing about in the books in Black studies.
Okay, you just gonna drop the mic like that? That's what we gonna do? That's only the second question. You already dropped the mic. That is beautiful, and it's amazing. I was at the vigil for Nipsey. I went to Hamilton, so to know that you had a hand in organizing all of those from the '60s and adjacent gangs, it was special, and it's a moment I won't forget. And thank you for your continuous organizing of all of us for better. The third question I have for you is kind of more about modalities, right? So, Freedom School Online, we aim to share liberatory modalities. That's why inviting amazing speakers like Dr. Bell is one of our goals, just to broaden out what is our understanding, especially when it comes to freedom and dreaming about it. So, my question for you, Dr. Bell, is how do you define liberation, and how does your approach to your medium contribute to the liberation of Black people? Uh, Building off of all of what you just said, that builds off of that concept.
Yeah, so for me, I always say most people don't want true freedom or liberation. They just don't want to be the most oppressed. I'm gonna hit that again. Most people don't want true freedom or liberation. They just don't want to be the most oppressed. And so for me, this idea of liberation and freedom comes from within first, and understanding who I really am and walking through the world, understanding intergenerational trauma, understanding how we are in this systems of oppression, but we don't have to be of it. There's so many people, so many Black people that are embodying white supremacy. There's so many Black people that think that Black capitalism will save us. So for me, my modality was more of a spiritual. You see, God is my favorite celebrity. So I, at one point wanted to be a youth pastor. And we've had this conversation before when I had a real pivot, and I think you did an article about it. And I realized that my relationship with God was a important personal relationship, and it became like I couldn't take credit for all the original formations of all this stuff, and just like it just doesn't make sense. And so I know that my life is a testimony. I know that I'm always being obedient. So first and foremost is that spiritual connection and being able to be aware and self-aware, yes, but also being obedient to hear. And it doesn't matter what spiritual practice you are in. It could be you're talking to your ancestors. It could be you're talking to your higher selves. It doesn't matter what spiritual practices that you are in. You need to be connected in it. And mostly I'm a dancer to be in my body because I dissociate a lot because of childhood trauma, because of all the things. So I had to remind myself to get in my body, because for me to get in my body, that's how I hear messages. If I'm always out in la la land, how am I going to be in my body to receive the messages? So that's what I use dance in order to shift. So first, get in my body. That's where I always start with breathing. I always start with slowing down my body. I start with moving the body. So I'm in my body. And then I'm able to hear and receive the messages, and I'm able to transmute energy through my body. So that's a modality. And then we have education, right? And my ability to be able to learn. I've always had a photographic memory. I was the one that would see a music video and I'd be like, oh, I got it. I'm gonna teach y'all all, I learned a new dance move. Oh, we all in the hood. We all know it. You know what I'm saying? So that using that intelligence to be able to teach others, because what I want to move from as a modality is moving from the me-centeredness to the we-centeredness, because this society wants us to be so individualistic. And I would always get in trouble by the teachers because I'm trying to give out the study guide answers. We studying together. But listen, that helps me learn when I'm teaching others. And if it's an in-class exam and they all got the right answers, why I'm getting in trouble? Is it right? Did they get the right answers? But Shamell, these are all your answers. Is it right? So that's kind of where my modalities come from, this idea of teaching, the idea of mothering as well. I have so many like adopted students that are now my kids, and that kind of thing. And like, one of my research participants from Jerkin, she's really my daughter. And so she just sent me a message today. She's like, I'm having my third child. Can you come and spend the winter break with me? And her children are like, really call me their grandmother. They're like, Nana, Nani. So that idea of doing life, even going, next week to two of my students are getting married to each other from Dartmouth, going to the wedding. How I got lessons in chemistry is because one of my former students from Dartmouth was on set saying, oh, we need Dr. Bell. That's who we need for the historical consultant. And here I am, from a historical consultant to a producer. So it's not about just me. You saw I brought somebody from Street Dance Active. How many street dance activism people was up in the workshop? And somebody has to do the work with me. Oh, we need my sound bowl healer. Yeah, I could have played something, but no. It's about we-centeredness. I don't come by myself. So that's the modality. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, and boy does it. Boy does it. And it just charges me and reminds us all, I hope, that it's the we is how we win. The we is how we win. I that was really powerfully said. I don't know if you see yourself this way, but I want to ask you a question to help you see it if you don't already. I want to ask you if you see yourself as an archivist. The reason why I asked that question is because your work to me helps preserve the medium of dance, the medium of street dance activism, the scholarship. I think even your organizing. I think all of these things are dynamic examples of what the archive is and can be for others to glean from in the future. So, do you see yourself as an activist, as an activist? Do you see yourself as an archivist? And if so, how does your work help preserve that medium, especially for our people?
Absolutely. It wasn't intentional. Um, I somehow knew that even when we were doing street dance activism, to get my phone out. And so I have even a lot of the original things from like in my phone and my Google Docs and da 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 da. And so it didn't start out like that, but when I started doing projects, I always said I didn't want to just do a paper. So I was like, wait, I got that in my Google Drive. I got that in my Google photos, and putting together. And I've always been a documentarian. Like at USC, and I'm so grateful to USC, did writing in the community, and we had to do a documentary, a student documentary. And so, of course, I got people to do it on Jerkin, and the editor ended up going to USC and then helping with, like, we still are in community this day, help me with my dissertation, da 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 da, like that kind of thing. But in my dissertation, I knew that I was using oral history as a method. And so I got students and participants from my undergraduate research to have the research from 2008, 2009, and then bring it to 2018 and had it like that's an archive, right? And then also knowing that us in the present, it's really important to tell our stories because other people are telling it for us. So yeah, it wasn't intentional, but now it is. So I tell all my students they have to do a little documentary, and they have to do some things in writing because the medium is really important. There's some people that will never read what we write in the ivory towers, never. but there are people that will watch a dissertation documentary. So I had to fight in I did double the work for my UCLA PhD. I did a 75-minute documentary, and then I did a written and had them, if you watched it, you could read, like I had it woven so that you can pick a medium, but both of them would imply the same thing because I didn't want to privilege one over the other. But then after that, people started doing more documentaries. So, setting precedent is one of the things that I wanted to do with documenting as autoethnography, oral history, that kind of thing.
So not only do you consider yourself an archivist, but you have committed yourself to making archivists of the archive out of all of the work you produce. That's special, Dr. Bell. Like that is exactly what should happen, and I'm glad you've been leading that charge. Unfortunately, even due to double the work, but you know, generations behind us will be grateful for that. I'm my my fifth question for us today is that many would argue that we're currently in a renaissance moment for the mediums that you're involved with, right? Do you agree with that take? And if so, what do you want others to know about your practice and approach, especially for future generations, as this could even serve as a form of an archive? This conversation can serve as an archival piece as well.
Yeah, I'm hesitant with the Renaissance because I feel like um, we've always been doing this. And so, especially, I teach a class from Black Arts Movement to Black Lives Matter that I created at Harvard. And um, I think what's important is to show that art, I think it was Nina Simone said art is supposed to reflect the times, right? If we're not for Black people, what are we doing? And so I see that what's happening right now is that people are paying attention. I feel like this idea of activism is being phased out. I don't really like to be told that I'm an activist. I know that I'm a community organizer. I know that I'm a liaison. I know that I have this ability to be in liminal spaces, being in the between of folks that are on the ground and folks that are mourning, like working with the mothers, Oscar Grant's mother, Eric Garner's mom. So I I guess what I want to say is that we don't have the luxury to say that we're activists. Everybody should be making some type of shift. Like in your, if you're thinking you're just working for a 9 to 5 to pay your bills and pay the grocery bills at this point, I want to be clear that I'm not saying if you are quote unquote just doing that, that you're not doing enough, but I just don't want us to feel like we're special because we have the privilege to do that. And I want to also argue that the people that are working on their generational trauma, the people that are trying to breathe in this society, because in my dissertation, I argue that living is resisting for Black people. So that's a form of activism. If you are going out every day, living, breathing, and how dare you have the audacity to be in joy? Resistance, you know? So I'm not quite sure if that's a renaissance to me. It's something that we have, I think it's a resurgence. But I also think that, you know, we're exactly where we need to be. And I really want to urge us to know that the poets, the dancers, the reason why I love imagination and freedom dreaming and things like that, you know, the artists are going to save us because they have the ability to bring things to life from nothing, from our brains and our thoughts. So if you get a whole bunch of people doing that who know how to create, we can get free.
Dr. Bell, thanks for setting the mic on fire. I'm gonna give you the last word. The closing thoughts, the shout out. Any closing thoughts or shout outs you would like to make for our time today, and or people in your community network that the world should know too. or who the archive tends to leave out but doesn't get enough credit. Like this is that portion where you can do that roll call of sorts.
Absolutely. So Michelle Taboo was just in the driving and still on the Zoom and then still dropping gems and still saying freedom dreams. But the first street dance activism workshop that we did outside of the LAPD headquarters, as we were on about 18 days of trying to get the autopsy report for Ezell Ford's murder. You know, I called her up and she did choreography for it. So I had Day Day from the Rangers, which was a famous jerk crew at the time. They ended up getting signed to Nick Cannon for a little bit and having a movie called Street Dance, School Dance or whatever. And had Day Day come and we were dancing. And so those are like original street dance activism. It was this idea that, I wanted to be clear that street dance activism wasn't saying that protesting in the streets or shutting things down in that way, we were doing it better because we were just teaching a free dance class. But I felt in that moment that this idea of like the sorrow and the pain that I felt with my clear empathy, it was like, oh, it's lighter out here. We're in our joy. And that's actually when the police officers got a little bit more scared. They're like, what they over here dancing for? This is what in the voodoo? Like, and not in a bad way. They thought like what was happening, And so for me, I'm grateful to folks that believed in street dance activism. And then you later saw dancing all over the Black Lives Matter movement. In the beginning, I had to like push to dance. I was at the convening, the Movement for Black Lives, like, can we dance? Had a street dance activism workshop there. And so I'm just grateful to all members of street dance activism, which is, artists, activists, spiritual leaders, educators, all types of folks, but mostly I want to go back to just a shout out to Michelle. We both are dealing with chronic illness, and at a point in time, Michelle had an illness that they thought was going to kill her. She's still here. They still here. She goes by she and they. And we got tattoos, and the tattoo says, "I heal, you heal, we heal," in each other's handwriting. So I have her, I heal, you heal, we heal on my body. And she has in my handwriting, I heal, you heal, we heal. And so that's kind of what I want to share to kind of like wrap this up, is that we do life together, and healing and love is the number one thing. That's what's real. And this ability to move from the I and understand that you also matter, and it's more about we. I think that's where we'll be able to do this quantum leap. Like I said, I had this vision. I don't think I mentioned here in this podcast, and I want to leave it where in 2020 I saw in my dreams. Sometimes, a lot of times, my dreams come true, right? And it's like, what would happen? That's that clairvoyance, right? Or I can just be sitting at an action and say, hey, those people are going to get arrested. And, God gave me the ability, and they didn't listen to me, and those people got arrested. And they're like, oh, Shamell's like a shaman or something. And I'm like, no, I just hear, they laughing. That's what she said. You're like a shaman. And so for me, what's really, really important about that gift is I had this idea, I had this vision where I was crying because I saw people dancing all over the world. And at a certain point, they shifted. And that shift lifted frequencies and lifted vibrations. And we were no longer on that same timeline of our demise. And I was crying because I felt it in my body. And I put it on Facebook. And then it was about 44 of us, and we created the Global Dance Meditation for Black Liberation. And in that, we needed to heal. And we had 28 days of going through love, compassion, all the different things that we needed to let go in order to be light enough to make that quantum leap, in order to shift to the left together. And you saw some of those people in our workshop today. Like, we follow each other around, and we do You got something you want me to do, I got something you want to do. We were just at the Bells Hooks Center together, you know. So yeah, that's one of the things that I want to say is like to you have to be able to listen and watch your dreams. And sometimes that dream is really a reality. I don't know. That probably was a vision. It probably, I'm like, did that happen? And it did. We later made it happen. And I don't think I don't think it was the end. I think it's just the beginning of this continuing. That's why I'm collective freedom dreaming around. To get us to continue to lift these frequencies and vibrations and leave people a little bit more transformed.
Dr. Bell, we are all better because you are steering us all in a collective we to raise our vibrations and frequencies. And this conversation, for transparency's sakes, y'all, this is exactly what Dr. Bell gives all of her loved ones in her galaxy, in her constellation, as the bright star that she is. And I think Freedom School onliners are going to be better after listening and or getting a view of your recent workshop with us today. So thank you, Dr. Bell, for your
We have to
time.
do more of these workshops.
Oh, oh, literally, the ideas have been brewing this entire time. And I think everyone needs to experience what all of us experienced this afternoon with having and feeling that shift. And Dr. Bell, you're clearly an architect for a modality that definitely can bring us closer to a North Star. So thank you, Dr. Bell, and thanks y'all for listening, and look out for more from Freedom Schools online soon, okay?
Peace. Thank you for listening.